Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about creating healthy habits with your diet. So whether you're a beginner or you're stuck or you're frustrated and need some extra tips on how to be more efficient of creating a healthy lifestyle with the foods that you eat, then please stay tuned and I will share everything to make it all a lot easier for the rest of your life. So it's a lifestyle. So keep in mind when you diet, you don't just want to necessarily do it for too short of a time and then go back to unhealthy habits, because then it's all just going to come back. However, there are diets where sometimes you do want to cycle in and out, but that does not mean to go back to eating unhealthy food if you want to maintain the results that you got from the diet that you were on. So a couple of good diets that I'll follow are the Paleo diet or the Keto diet, and for people who have autoimmune disorders, the Maker's diet is also a great way to go as well. Now there's actually also companies out there that can genetically test you to see what diet is the best for your body. And hands down, I definitely think that's a great way to go because all of our genes are a little different. Granted, there's obviously a lot that we share amongst just being a human being, but if it's specific to you and your body, that would make it that much better. And I think those are only about $50. So I think that's a great investment into yourself for the rest of your life. So with that said, a great place to look for recipes is online. Obviously, you just look up paleo and whatever kind of meal that you want to make for that evening. Or you could put keto in front, keywords or foods that might help maybe certain body parts. Let's say like you're on a medication for a certain body part that's not functioning that great. There's healthy alternatives you can ingest in your diet that will help support those different organs. And you can look those up. So natural ways to do that. I remember when I first started taking my diet more seriously, I was probably about 22 years old. That's when I first became a personal trainer. At the time, I was really fit, but I didn't necessarily always eat healthy or make great food for myself. I think I made Hamburger Helper or something. And after realizing that I have to set an example and be a role model to my clients, I knew that I had to learn how to cook. So you got to learn how to cook if you want to eat healthy, because you can't go out there and trust restaurants. We can agree that maybe that's your priority right now and why you're even listening to this to get these tips, but it's not theirs. They are a business. They are there to make money and make tasty food. And people's taste buds change as well when they start new diets. Your body might not be used to these certain flavors, like your taste buds. However, taste buds adapt to new flavors. So always stick with the healthy diet for at least 3 months before you totally cancel certain foods out, because you might notice that your body is starting to adapt to the different flavors, such as stevia, for example. That's a sugar alternative. That's a sweetener. And a lot of times, if you've never had it before, it might taste like really bitter and unpleasant. At least it did for me. I didn't like it. But after a short period of time of using it, I don't even taste the bitterness anymore, and I'm totally adapted to it. And now it's my sweetener of choice. It can come in liquid or powder forms, but that's just an example. So I also want you to start cooking for yourself. If you're not good, use recipes. So I had to learn with recipes. I wouldn't necessarily have called myself a gourmet chef, and I didn't really learn a lot about cooking growing up. So that's what I had to do, is look up recipes for things. And what recipes I enjoyed, I would save it to my Pinterest, especially ones that were really healthy that I would want to make again. And from there, if you, let's say, don't have a lot of time every day, maybe you have kids and you have a busy schedule, cook for yourself at least once a week and meal prep that for the whole week. And so just commit like maybe 2 hours to meal prep maybe every Sunday for the rest of the week. and then you can stick them in the freezer so that when you're ready to eat it, you can eat it and it will be fresh still. So when you do these meal preps, there's also online videos and tutorials that you can look up for the specific diet that you end up choosing, and that saves so much time every week to just make it all at one time. And yes, healthy food can taste good, okay? It does not need to be bland. If you're not going to compete in a competition, you don't have to restrict everything of flavor. The number one go-to, seasonings. That's the best way to make your food taste delicious without tons of calories, like with creamy sauces that just have more fat that are not necessarily healthy because it's usually processed with high fructose corn syrup and, food thickeners in them. And the foods you eat, you want it to be as close to natural as possible. If there's no food label, that's probably the healthiest thing for you. So try to stay away from food labels. Now, granted, not everything with a food label is bad. Like quinoa is a great rice alternative, and it's a complete protein, where typically complete proteins you'll only get from animals. So it's very rare that you see plants being a complete protein, but hemp actually, and quinoa, chia seeds are all great alternatives for that. If you're a vegan or vegetarian, you have to be really careful when it comes to making sure that you get all your essential amino acids, and you have 12 of them. Because if you're not eating meats and proteins that come from animals, then you could be lacking certain essential amino acids. And every single function in your body needs proteins for you to process energy and for everything to function, which takes energy. So proteins are so important for your body. And yes, there are proteins in vegetables and fruits and things like that, but they're all incomplete proteins. And I don't know anyone out there who's going to know all the amino acids in every single food that they're going to eat and making sure that they pair it properly to make sure they get all 12. So that's just one extra thing to be mindful of if you are a vegan or vegetarian. If not, and you go to Paleo or Keto, then the protein part becomes much easier, less thought has to go into it. Ultimately, across the board with all diets out there, one common denominator is that none of them have things like bread and pasta and pizza and croissants and English muffins, etc., that are a staple of the diet because they're all processed. You want to stay far from processed foods because it's stuffed with preservatives, which is typically either high in sodium or sugar. And your body can synthesize what it needs the best and eliminate the rest. And if you have too much toxins and chemicals that are like man-made, not from the earth, then your liver has to do more work to process it, which it is designed for. However, if you get a fatty liver, maybe you drink too much alcohol or just the types of foods that you eat, your body is going to have a harder time processing toxins out of your body, and then it will be stored in your fat, and now you have toxins all over your body, and you don't want that. Because also certain toxins can also affect your brain as well. So everything's connected. If this is your first time actually trying to practice a new healthy diet and you don't know where to start necessarily, or you might have an idea of what you think is healthy when it actually may not be. So using labels is a good rule of thumb to actually stay away from. But if it is your first time and you like certain things and it's going to be hard for you to break that habit, start by substituting foods. So if you like sandwiches, which I used to eat sandwiches all the time, I loved sandwiches. Instead of bread, you can use lettuce leaves, and rolling them in a meat is also a delicious way to substitute bread out of your diet. Instead of sandwiches, you make it into a salad, so almost use most of the same ingredients just except for the bread. It tastes identical, very minimal difference. Sweetener substitutes that are good alternatives are monk fruit and stevia. They can come in granule form, powder form, liquid form. You can go to your local health food store and they have great alternatives there for sweeteners. Let's say you like tortillas. They have tortillas made from cassava. Or if you're trying to substitute dairy out of your diet, goat or sheep's milk is a great alternative. The difference between cow, goat, and sheep's milk is that goat and sheep only have one compartment in their stomach. Cows have 4 compartments in their stomach. So it takes different enzymes to have to process the foods that they eat that end up going into our body if we eat cow products, whether it's milk or meat. And our body doesn't necessarily have all those enzymes that a cow has. And our body has a much easier time processing goat and sheep's milk or even meat because of that. And so when our body doesn't necessarily have that enzyme to break down milk, then our body will have inflammation. And inflammation is a common denominator in a lot of diseases, and you don't want that in your body. Same thing with cheeses. If you really like cheese, goat cheese is a great alternative. A lot of health food stores have a variety of different flavors of goat cheese, and you can even find them in slices too. Same with sheep milk cheese and yogurts that are made from goat's milk and sheep's milk and kefir. So those alternatives are out there for dairy substitutes, so you don't have to use cow products. Another thing you want to be mindful of is portion control. So you can eat super healthy, but if you're eating way too much, you're going to probably be at a plateau or not see the results that you're looking for. You can look that up online, specifically use like a calculator where you put in your height and weight and gender, and it will give you an idea about how many calories you should be taking in every day and the ratio depending on which diet that you're on. You can get yourself a scale, and when you measure your food, you can actually put the dish on the scale, zero the scale out, and then put the food in it to weigh it out to make sure it's appropriate for what is suggested for your body type. Also, if you're out to eat, another good rule of thumb that you can use is your palm or fist. So protein can be about the size of your palm. Veggies can be about 2 palm sizes, veggies and fruit. Carbs, the size of your fist. So that's about how big on your plate it should be. And then fats could be about the size of your fist, but sideways. And also, you don't want to pair carbs and fats together. Now, a lot of times when people think of carbs, they think of bread and pasta and tortillas, tortilla chips and things. But keep in mind that is carbs, but also fruits and vegetables are carbs. So if you're eating both, keep that in mind so you don't eat too many carbs, because all carbohydrates are sugars. And so too many sugars, you can have insulin problems, or if you're a diabetic, things like that that you need to be mindful of. And having too much sugar in your diet could potentially cause you to retain more fat as well. So just keep in mind, even though fruits and vegetables definitely are healthier, they're still carbohydrates. Another thing to keep in mind when you're going grocery shopping for fruit specifically is where does it fall on the glycemic index. So basically that tells you how much sugar that they have in it. And the typical fruits such as bananas, oranges, and apples are actually very high on the glycemic index. So if you're trying to cut your sugars and still want to get that fiber from the fruit or some kind of sweetness, you actually want to get berries and lemons and limes. They're the lowest on the glycemic index, including avocados. So those are great choices to make instead of the apples and bananas, oranges, grapes. If you are going to get apples, get Granny Smith, the green ones. They have the lowest amount of sugar. So you don't want too much sugar. So keep in mind that anything that's a carbohydrate is a sugar. So all fruits and vegetables are all carbohydrates, as well as things like milk have carbohydrates in it. Anything with sugar has carbohydrates in it. And so when you start to add all those different sources of carbohydrates up, it starts to come to a lot of sugar in your diet. So just be mindful of all the different sources that sugar comes from. It's not just your typical sweetener on your table or things that taste sweet. Because most of the time people don't think lemons taste sweet, but lemons actually have more sugar than strawberries have. But it's usually really sour. So you don't want to use your taste buds necessarily as an indicator whether or not something has sugar in it. So with all that said, I wish you the best of luck, and please like and subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions, please leave your comments below, and I will create other videos to address them. And good luck, and let me know how I can support you.